Yeah, so I guess we'll talk about minerals if you want. We got all the people in now, so
All right, go on, your baby.
my baby,
Your baby.
well, I shall nurture it. Good thing we added selenium to the baby formulas to prevent SIDS. Sorry, it's a
Then
nerd joke.
I don't get that. What do you mean?
Okay, selenium was recently added to. Oh, you know what? I'll explain the joke, but give me a sec. I gotta do this disclaimer. Sudden infant death syndrome was a big thing with children, right? And doctors used to blame mothers for smothering their child and things like that. And then they recently added selenium to baby formula, and the incidence of SIDS dropped significantly.
Oh wow.
So whether it be, some people think that immunizations are what are causing SIDS and things like that. Regardless of what your belief is actually causing it, selenium is help preventing it. So that's really cool. So that's why
Well,
so when I said I nourish it like my baby, I said with some formula with enriched with selenium. Just a bad joke.
I get it. I get it now. Thank you for explaining. I didn't realize that about the infant formula. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's only a small amount, but especially with those trace elements, that's all you really need. Just enough to prevent deficiency, right?
Mm.
So I'm going to do the disclaimer quickly, the most boring part, but most essential. This audio is brought to you by Bumpus, Pippa, and the Nutritional Balancing Friends Facebook group. Please remember that none of the products, claims, or programs from this call have been evaluated by any government health body. The content and information found within this audio from John Bumpus, attendance of this group call, and in our affiliated Nutritional Balancing Friends Facebook group is for informational purposes only. The content is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as treatment cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be construed as such because that would be illegal. Always work with a qualified health professional before making any changes to your diet, supplement use, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. Please understand that you assume all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information. Thank you. Yeah, so selenium is really cool. I guess we could just start by talking about that one a little bit. I think we've all used selenium at one point or another. I wrote a really big article on selenium on my website, but I don't want to talk about every little function that it's used. One of the really cool things with selenium is that it is an antioxidant, and it works along with vitamin E to help prevent lipofuscin accumulation.
Okay, you might want to explain what liposuction is because a lot of people won't know what that is.
Lipofuscin is essentially fatty deposits of rancid fat that's essentially in the skin and found in organs and things like that. It is essentially like what most people would call liver spots. That's like lipofuscinosis. So selenium and vitamin E are really helpful with preventing those. Not to say that freckles are a disease of some kind, but lipofuscin has been correlated with a lot of different types of cancers, and it depresses thyroid function. So just a cool little thing. Selenium helps prevent that. Selenium is also really good for preventing cancers in general. It used to be a debate, but I'll be honest, it's not really a debate anymore. It's just it doesn't protect from all cancers. It's only select ones.
Do you know which ones that is, John?
Off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure cancer in like the thyroid and prostate cancer for sure. Those are just the two off the top of my head. Do you know any, Pippa?
That's selenium protects against? No, I don't. Not off the top of my head. That was why I was kind of asking you. I mean,
Okay. Breast cancer is
oh,
another one.
breast cancer.
Yeah. I have heard it can reduce breast cancer by 88%,
Oh wow.
which is quite significant. I haven't found an actual citation for that, but on my website I have citations for all the different, cancers.
Yeah, thyroid cancer. That makes sense because they use it, and one of the things that they suggest in Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
So, and they always suggest, and they do suggest that, like, Hashimoto's can then go on to lead to like thyroid nodules and things like that, and thyroid cancer. So that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea. Even it doesn't matter if it's just selenium or zinc, and they say it benefits cancer. I think if I were to get diagnosed with that, what I would be doing, I'd be taking all the nutrients. I wouldn't just go, oh, I got my selenium, I'll be fine, right? That's just what I would do. And I would recommend others do that really as well. Because I do think the minerals all work together. And that's why I think when people just take just single nutrients, they kind of have limited benefit.
Yeah, yeah. So, and how long do you think it takes to, rectify a selenium deficiency?
Well, it's taken for me, like my own self, it took about 9 months. And then that was the number I was going with for a bit. And the more I've been testing with other people, especially, using hair testing isn't kind of a way of identifying the tissue level of selenium. Usually it takes about 9 months. And it worked like that for me, but because I don't want to recommend anyone really take higher than 200 micrograms per day. You can take higher, upwards of about 350 is generally recommended as safe, but I don't like to recommend more than that unless they have some reason to really amp up their selenium intake. But it's actually very easy on a hair test to raise just the selenium level. It's one of the few ones that, like, when is low you can supplement and it will go up, whereas if you try that with like zinc sometimes it'll go down, right? And it's inconsistent.
Right, I'm still waiting for mine to budge. So I've been using selenium for probably like 5 or 6 months now, I guess. Yeah, coming up to 6 months, and it hasn't. It's like still at 0.8.
Okay, so you could still have room to go up. Well, at least according to ARL's ideal. On trace elements, that's about pretty good range, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Within reference range. So.
The thing was also, depending on where you live, the soil itself has different amount of selenium in it. So when I did, for my own example, when I said take about 9 months, I was living in Canada.
Right.
And I was eating local food when we have higher soil levels than United Kingdom. So I think that would be one major, factor to kind of rule. It's like right now, I'll be honest, the amount of selenium I've been taking lately, not for any real reason. I take about 6 megapan, which equates to about 300 micrograms. And then I take L-selenomethione, another 200 micrograms. So I take about 550 micrograms right now, which is higher than generally recommended as, safe.
You're like the guinea pig, John.
Well,
You're the nutritional balancing guinea pig.
I have guinea pig myself because I think that's a good starting point, right? Like, if I wouldn't recommend it to other people if I wouldn't do it to myself, and I wouldn't put them through scenarios where I wouldn't go through myself either.
Right.
So I do think taking supplements and going over and above in certain instances, I should try it before I suggest others do it. As far as selenium, I personally think it's very safe. I think obviously there's selenium toxicity, which is called like selenosis or something like that, And having too much selenium can cause a lot of like muscle spasms and cause your hair to fall out, and your nails to fall off, and things like that. Like, it's not nice having an excess of selenium, right? I'll tell you, I haven't had that myself, taking the dose that I've been doing. But they are two different sources, and L-selenomethionine is really well absorbed by the body, and it doesn't appear to be very toxic, whereas the amino acid chelate that's in the megapan, there's not so much science to back up that would necessarily be good to take in high doses. So
Okay.
the,
Hold on. That's the selenomethionine, right?
yeah, so that one's real safe. There's actually like research, if you take the selenium in the yeast form and you take vitamin C at the same time, it actually blocks the anti-tumor genesis of selenium. So selenium can stop the production of tumors, but if you take the yeast-based selenium with vitamin C, you can actually make that function inert. That's not really good. But if you take it with L-selenomethyonine, there's no negative interaction like that. So it's been my favorite. And also, if I don't know if you're really interested in learning about Dr. Gerhard Schrauzer's work, which in my opinion, he's the selenium champ. He's a really cool guy. I'm in a lot of the area with him as far as selenium research goes, and even intake. I think it's very important for many things aside just glutathione production, which is what the government currently uses as a measure for the RDA. So they basically say if you get like 55 micrograms, then you have adequate amounts to make glutathione, therefore you don't need any more. But it was actually identified that selenium is involved in 25 different proteins aside from glutathione, and a lot of those are like P53, which are genes that are like the kraken that destroys cancer. Having too much of P53 expression though can actually do a lot of damage. It's like having a kraken you can't control. Obviously it's not, it's a double-edged sword having too much of something, but as far as the government guidelines go, I think they could safely up it up to about 350 micrograms for everybody, just so that they can get the anti-cancer benefits as well as the glutathione benefits.
Right. So when they've done these controls that have cancer, is that the dosage that they're using, 350 milligrams?
They have used more, actually. They've used like 800 and things like that, but they didn't find any more benefit. So that's kind of like the safe recommendation, where you're not going to cause like a toxicity of selenium, but you're also getting an adequate amount to actually protect you. It's also used in a lot of viruses, to protect from viruses. And there's some researchers that say cancer is virus. It's a byproduct of viruses. I don't really agree with that, but I'm not a specialist. But the selenium connection with allowing viruses to become virulent, which is where they become pathogenic. Right. Selenium usually can stop that from happening. So a lot of people say like that having a deficiency of selenium can make you more susceptible to viral conditions. So this can be like HIV or Lyme disease even, along with vitamin E as well. But selenium is, in my opinion, the champ to protect from viral conditions.
So if somebody gets a cold or a flu or something like that, can they take selenium and have some level of benefit from taking selenium at short notice?
I believe so, yeah, because it supports the immune system, which, well, I'm taboo, right? Like, I'm into science, but I don't really believe in the immune system itself. I believe that every cell has its own immune system. It's not necessarily between your thyroid and your spleen and all this stuff. There may be communication between them, but it's at the cellular level where each cell has to have its own immune system, which I don't think science has really figured out yet. So But as far as selenium's actual ability to increase the immune system, I think that's a good idea because it's a virus, like you said. Another benefit, which not many people really talk about either, but it's kind of gaining more traction, is selenium's its need for increasing fertility. So some people are like infertile, and sperm itself has like zinc and selenium in it to allow the ability for it to, get up there and germinate the seeds of life.
Wow. So, what are some selenium-rich foods, John?
Well, it depends where you are, right? First, because you can say wheat is very high in selenium, but if you're living in Australia, if you're living in like the northern regions of China, if you're in Scotland, if you're in the UK, it's not actually a good source of selenium because it's not in the soil. Because minerals occur, in veins. That's why you can't just look for gold anywhere. You have to find it. It's the same with selenium. And there's not much in certain areas. So if it's in the soil, then you're going to find it. Brazil nuts, they say, is a really good source, but I think that you should get shelled Brazil nuts if you can. And the reason being is because selenium can gas off. It's not always there. So yes, the Brazil nut's really good. Eggs are really good. Pretty much any protein, any meat is, because animals require selenium for their amino acid production, selenocysteine. So you can have like seafood, tuna or anything like that.
But do you think that the fact that there's lots and lots and lots of people have gone gluten-free could be an issue for like people that are already suffering from like deficiencies and things like that, getting really restrictive in their diets, and then causing themselves actually even more deficiencies because of the fact that they're not getting foods that possibly could have some of these nutrients in them.
I think that's a good point, to be honest. I think that's also kind of why a lot of ancient cultures had always used grains, because grains themselves are considered spiritual food, right? I don't know how much you take validity with that, but they were considered like spiritual foods, and maybe one of the reasons why that is because of its selenium content, but
Right.
I don't know for sure. I'm not. Yeah, but that is an excellent point where you could deprive yourself of foods where you might actually need the nourishment.
Right. Well, like, it's a little bit like the whole calcium thing, like a lot of people go dairy free and then like calcium goes down to like 20% of the RDA on a daily basis. And
Yeah,
more and more people are ending up with like osteoarthritis and things like that. And I know it's not just due to the fact that they're not consuming dairy, but I do think it's a big part of it because we become so like food scared of foods and things like that these days.
a lot of trends are very restrictive where you would like say you're a vegan, you don't eat meat, therefore you miss out on selenium and zinc and things like that, among other amino acids, right?
Right. All the time.
Yeah, or just protein in general.
Yeah. Oh my god. Um, cool. Anything else to tell us about selenium?
uh I think we should talk about others. Selenium is one of my favorite ever. um the only thing I'd mention is that, like, if you could kind of imagine when you walk into one of those supermarkets and the doors open, you got those in England.
Yes.
You,
What, the doors open automatically?
yeah, when you walk in front of that sensor.
Yeah.
Well, that sensor uses selenium to do that. So I kind of imagine that the cell has that same kind of function where selenium is important for allowing nutrients in.
Right.
I don't have a lot of science to back that up, but I'm extrapolating here. Whereas it has outside, so it is within, right? That's all I really want to say about that. And the fact, I guess I'll just add it, 1 billion people around the world are deficient in selenium.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which is quite a bit. Like, that's serious. If it was like some other imbalance, like if 1 billion people had AIDS, it would be this huge crisis. But because it's 1 billion people that are just, deficient in one nutrient, then it's a silent epidemic. Yeah, I think that's enough about selenium, because I probably could talk about it all call, but I don't want to do that. Do you want to touch on anything, Pippa, before we
No,
change?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. So I guess minerals are really important for other stuff aside from just nutrient intake, where this is a second call on minerals, so I've already kind of outlined the importance of essential nutrients and what their place is in the diet and things like that. But what we didn't talk about in the last call was how nutrients actually protect you from heavy metals. When you have inadequate intakes of dietary minerals, you allow yourself to accumulate toxic elements. And selenium is a really big one for that, because it protects you from things like mercury, arsenic, and lead. So it's better to have selenium in a little bit of an excess, in my opinion, than to be more susceptible to lead, for example. Like, I'm in Australia and they burn coal for energy here, so there's lead higher here than it would be, say, where you guys are in England. I want to protect myself from that, and that's one of the ways I do, is through nourishment, and even I call it super nutrition. It's basically what Roger Williams called it as well. It's where you give large amounts of nutrients to protect yourself. Are you aware with triage theory, Pippa?
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh, you'd really like it. Triage theory, I didn't think I was going to go here, but I will. Triage theory is the idea that it's an idea that was taken from, the World War and the wars and like that, where there would be a certain set of people where you can help, like it was like for doctors and surgeons and things like that, right? Where you could help some people, other people you could help them, but they were a little bit harder to work with, and then the other group was like, they're probably just gonna die, and like they're not top priority to work on, right? Well, triage theory, when it's applied to nutrition, is basically the idea that your body requires nutrients, and that when you have inadequate amounts, your body makes compensations with it, and these compensations trade off long-term health for short-term survival. It's used as kind of like a theoretical way to explain why someone loses their eyesight, for example, when other more important functions of the body need to be maintained, such as the heart function.
Right.
Triage theory extrapolated could also be used for the heavy metal component, which is what I was touching on at the beginning, where nutrients protect you from heavy elements, because you're better off to have toxic elements, lead, mercury, arsenic, and things like that, accumulate in areas that are furthest away from your spinal cord. But a lot of those heavy metals do have affinities for neurons, essentially, like fat. So your body can put it in your outside in like subcutaneous fat, or it could go in like visceral fat, that kind of stuff, or it could go to your nervous system. Well, it's the body's intelligence essentially that doesn't want it there, and it would do anything to push it away. So that's why a lot of nutrients are really good for your nervous system. And when you have deficiencies in them, you get a lot of nervous system imbalances, because that's when, at least according to this kind of theory, would be where the heavy metals start to accumulate in the nervous system itself, and then it starts to basically overstimulate the nervous system. The nervous system doesn't work properly, it shorts out, kind of thing.
I know that one very well.
Yeah, that one's kind of basic, but it's a triage is basically how that one works. If you look up Dr. Bruce Ames, he did a lot of really good research on that. I think he's the guy that coined the term.
How do you spell Ames? A-M-E-S?
Yeah. His research also talks about how when you're folate deficient, you make your body more susceptible to the same DNA damage as when you get exposed by radiation. So just a simple, vitamin deficiency has the same effects. And my understanding for that would be that the body uses nutrients such as minerals and vitamins to protect from stress. And as you experience more and more stress, the more nutrients you kind of go through. And that's how I feel like you hit like a threshold where you keep getting exposed to stress. Well, then it starts to damage you. But that's why other people are more resilient to it. So yeah, the preferred elements or the nutrient elements are kind of like the protectors. There's another I guess you'd say a compensation that the body does with heavy metals is where you probably come across a lot, Pippa, with people with candida overgrowths. And they're basically the idea that bacteria, it's better for the heavy element to be in the bacteria than it is to be damaging the body's tissues. And so that the body allows the overgrowth of, say, candida because of chronic copper exposure, for example, or mercury exposure. And where you end up having like a chronic candida infection instead of having like severe like mercury, instant death, essentially, too much, right? So your body would rather trade its long-term health for its short-term survival by allowing the candida expression to be there rather than mercury damaging you, right? And I guess that's one reason why I don't generally recommend too much digestive enzymes, because I feel like if you digest essentially, or like use an enzyme to break down the cell walls of bacteria and parasites, that you can kind of cause a lot of damage to your body by doing so.
That's interesting. Do you feel the same way about hydrochloric acid, or do you feel like that's a totally different ballgame?
I think hydrochloric acid has its purpose in the stomach already, right? I'm usually okay with hydrochloric acid. What I don't like is the use of large amounts of just like for example now super enzymes. Like I've used it in the past and I do recommend it on occasions, especially people with very bad digestion. But as far as a long-term solution, I don't like to use it for the reason I've mentioned already, because it kind of like they can digest bacteria, right? Or they can, like, parasites are made of protein, so your protease will digest that as well. And also the fact that a lot of those digestive enzymes are grown through GMO molds, which I don't really feel comfortable with. How pure is that enzyme, right? There's no government or any regulation for how pure that supplement has to be. So I don't generally recommend them. But hydrochloric acid itself, I guess, you do need chloride, right? A mineral to make hydrochloric acid. I kind of also like doing sodium chloride. That's why I like salt so much. And even doing salt rinses. Have you ever done one of those?
No, where?
No? And like copious amounts of salt.
Like, so are you talking like drinking a ton of salt and then getting like a good bowel movement going?
Yeah, have you ever tried doing that?
Salt water flushes.
Yeah.
I think I've done some in the past. I always found them to get harsh on my system.
Yeah, they totally can be. But I like using copious amount. I don't normally recommend doing the saltwater flush. I have a couple of times, even recently, but the major reason why I like to recommend it is because the chloride is really needed to make hydrochloric acid. And a lot of people I've found, especially with those salt restricted diets, like those fat diets destroy people, I swear. So they all cut salt because salt and heart disease is some concern. And what they really miss out on is like the chloride, which is, you need a lot of chloride. It's like, I think you need like 1,500 or 1,200 or something like that milligrams, which is a lot. When you talk about like selenium, you need micrograms, which are like a tenth that. So you're talking about like equal amounts of chloride to calcium even. Not many people are aiming for that chloride intake, but yeah, so I do think that's really important. And there was research done up by University of Arizona showing that chloride, iodine, and I'll just say those two. I know there was 3 minerals though that are really important for repairing telomeres. So if you're into anti-aging, that's a really cool thing. So there could be a connection with just overall hydrochloric acid production and anti-aging.
And so maybe that's one of the reasons why people get on really well with like magnesium chloride, drinking it, not like do that. A lot of people seem to drink mag chloride and things like.
Yeah.
Like Remag.
Yeah.
I've just recently started taking Remag, Pippa, and it's like, I feel such a difference, you know? It's a really good absorbable supplement.
Right, and that's got magnesium chloride. And I don't
Yes,
know.
it's magnesium chloride in a different form.
It's a pico-ionic form.
Pico-ionic, yeah. It apparently gets straight to your cells.
Right.
And I feel such difference since started taking it.
Well, that's interesting. What were you using before, Magda?
I was using sorry, I was using the, what is it called? Mintlex B.
Right.
And I was taking the magnesium threonate. No, how do you pronounce that? John, have I pronounced it correctly?
Magnesium threonate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, this one. And I was also doing the food soaks.
Right.
And you know, all of these combined didn't bring me such relief as this Remag, basically.
I just wanted to say that I find it, I don't think I said this to Magda already, but I find it really interesting that magnesium chloride can be so beneficial because it's only about 15% magnesium. And where it says you have taking a lot of magnesium, you're not really taking as much as you might have other forms. So I just think that's interesting, and it must be with the ability to assimilate the nutrient a little better in that form.
Yes, it also says that, you know, the picometer magnesium is smaller in diameter than the body's cell mineral ion channel. So basically it goes directly to the cell.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cause the diarrhea. It basically omits the large intestine. Goes straight to the cell, which I can feel in my body, so I can definitely say that it's working.
So Magda, I'd be really interested in how your next hair test goes up for your magnesium.
Yes. Oh well, I've just started taking it last week, and I feel such a difference. So I'm very curious how it will show up on my next retest. I'll let you know, Pippa, once I get it in the next 3 months probably.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious as well because I haven't actually used that product before. That's the Carolyn Dean's Remag.
Yeah.
I've always just done I don't know if it's the best ever or anything, but I used to just take magnesium chloride and make a solution. You know, you can buy magnesium chloride spray, but I just take the crystals and I add it to water and fully saturate it, and then I'd take some of that and put it in my water, and I'd just do that. I don't know if it's pico-ionic or anything, but I was doing that for a good amount of time. I did pretty well on it, actually, especially when I couldn't really get a good magnesium supplement for a while because Endomet was back order. Do you have a favorite magnesium, Pippa?
Sorry, I just had to go and answer the front door. I heard the doorbell ringing, and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And it was my mother who's been locked out of the house, and she'd been ringing the doorbell for 15 minutes. I hadn't heard
Oh, bless. Oh,
So I
happy
just
Mother's
like
Day.
ate out here until you finished. I said I could have been in there for another hour and a half, Mum.
Oh, bless.
Anyway, favorite magnesium. I have to say I do like magnesium malate, so I am using Minflex B at the moment, but mainly because I also needed the chromium and the B6 in it. But I
Yeah.
do prefer magnesium malate over most of the other ones that I've tried because they always tend to irritate my bowel a little bit, and I can get up to like 600 milligrams with the Minflex kind of orally. Actually, I can go up to about 800 milligrams with that if I want to go real high dose. But I also use a product called Essence of Life Magnesium Gel. And
Okay.
I really like that because like the magnesium oil I tend to find is like makes you feel really itchy, or it leaves that kind of oily residue on your body, and I really don't like that. And so I wouldn't like, I'd buy a bottle of magnesium oil and then barely ever use it.
Mm.
Other than, I do occasionally, if I really feel like I need a magnesium boost, I'll put the magnesium oil in two Ziploc bags and put them on my feet, and then put socks over the top of them and walk around the house in them for like 2 hours.
Oh, fun.
So that I find I can get quite a lot of magnesium in that way. But the magnesium gel I really like because it really makes my skin feel nice and soft,
Okay.
and I'm getting a good amount of magnesium in each. Like I think each teaspoon is like 300 milligrams of magnesium. So
Is that oral, or you just actually put it on your skin? Or can you
no,
do both?
yeah, no, you put it on your skin. I have never tried to eat it.
PB&J?
And I probably will be unlikely to try that. My limits
Okay.
of being a guinea pig is probably are a little bit smaller than yours are, John. So
Well, you never know. Um, yeah, I'm gonna activate some unknown genes one day, you'll see. Anyway, I was reading at one point, I don't know to the 100% validity of this, but it was definitely an interesting paper on transdermal application of magnesium. And the author, I don't know his name at the moment, you probably just find it by looking up transdermal magnesium in PubMed.
right,
And he was talking about how there's no actual mechanism to bring magnesium through the skin.
oh,
Yeah, it was really interesting. He cited, I think, 2 or 3 different papers where the only people that have actually made the claim saying that you can was hair analysis research
right,
and one urine, urine analysis. And but as far as like the blood, his idea was that it's always best to go oral. So I don't know. It was just one paper I read on it. I thought it was really cool. He seemed really peed off about a lot of the transdermal magnesium research. So whether it's, or not research, but marketing, because every stall you go to, it's like, with, best absorbable magnesium and all that. And
right. So
be,
that, I mean, by definition, that would also mean that if you sat in a big bath of Epsom salts, that you wouldn't absorb magnesium that way, or you wouldn't necessarily get magnesium if you went in the ocean. I don't know if I agree with that.
yeah, I don't know, because like even with the pico ionic one, which it could be the idea that the molecules are so small that they can go through something. It might not be necessarily the skin, but there's different ways to get nutrients in the body. I know the body can take in like zinc transdermally, so I don't see why magnesium wouldn't. But his idea was that like the channels that would actually allow magnesium to come in through the skin were too small. He was basically saying once you hydrate magnesium and then you put it on the skin, that it's like trying to put like a big block through a tiny hole where it's not gonna happen. But it was only one paper. I don't know. I just read it because I like reading. But so I experimented with, I've been doing lately with no transdermal. but at one point I was doing magnesium chloride on the skin, and right before I went to bed I put it on my legs and cover my legs up with, I have this lotion from Rokia Naturals. It's some Canada company. They're like highly recommended in the book. There's lead in your lipstick. And I was talking with the owner and she said this is really good for hydration. So I thought, oh, I'm going to put it with my magnesium chloride on my skin, right? So what I did was one day I covered my whole body with magnesium oil, right? I just put it everywhere. And then I covered myself up with this lotion. And then I went to bed. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was sweating like crazy. And there's like water everywhere. My sheets were just soaked with water. And I'll just say I won't do it again. It was terrible. I wouldn't recommend anyone ever do that. Maybe like, a couple sprays or something if you're going to do transdermal, but don't sleep with massive amounts and then oil yourself over it so there's like no barrier for you to sweat like I did. That was really stupid. But they're just efforts to get my magnesium up at one point. Anyway.
Oh my God. Well, I have spoken to various different people that have done both hair analysis and the RBC magnesium, and they've told me that it wasn't until they added in the transdermal that they actually started to get results, especially with the RBC magnesium.
I believe that you can absorb it. I've just been experimenting lately with just not doing it. That's really all I do. We have so much magnesium here, it's not funny. Because I do recommend to do the magnesium bath. I don't know if you've ever done it with borax and sea salt. You basically sit in a bath for like 20 minutes. And my idea is that, you'd still absorb it through the skin, whether or not, there's no real... It was one paper, right? So there's no mechanism. I don't know how true it is. So at this time, I still recommend doing it because, like you're saying, as far as I've seen, it has helped people with their magnesium levels. So it's one of those mysteries.
Right, but just make sure that you don't get your hair wet in a bath of Epsom salt and then send your hair into the lab. You'll get a really elevated magnesium and sodium level to it.
Absolutely. Don't taint your results. Actually, I had a lady... I remember Pippa and I one time were talking about hard water and the calcium level on a hair test. And I suggested a lady, well, firstly, let me go back a bit. She was talking about how her water was very high in calcium. She was complaining about her kettle being covered in, calcium and all this, and it took forever to clean her shower. And then she found out that her water softener wasn't on. She had one, but it wasn't working, right? So she got it fixed. And like I was just through email, we were talking about this. And then so when she sent in her hair test, she had actually just turned on her water softener. And what happened with the hair test was that all 4 minerals, like calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, shot way, way, way up. And she basically contaminated her hair results because, well, she already had a calcium shell, but not like that. What she did essentially was put the water softener on, and the water softener went through the pipes and picked up the calcium, and it already had sodium and potassium in the water softener stuff that they have, right? So when she washed her hair for the hair test and she sent it in, she basically sent in a hair test that was completely contaminated with all of this extra stuff from her water softener treatment. So yeah, you should be careful. That's the moral of that one.
Right, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, usually if I see really high sodium test, then I'll usually ask all my clients if they've got a water softener in straight off. Quite often they do.
Yeah.
But yes.
So I guess one thing I want to talk about a little bit would be that even though you might hit the RDA for a nutrient, you might not actually still be getting enough of a nutrient. And Pippa and I talked about this the other day in a separate call, but it was basically about like how, correct me if I'm getting a little mixed up, Pippa, where you may be getting your RDA, say in calcium, and the RDA is about 1200 milligrams, and you may be drinking 3 cups of milk, and that equates to about 900 milligrams. So you're almost getting all of your RDA through milk. But what is not accounted for on chronometer, for example, is that the calcium in milk is only 30% absorbable. So you're only really getting like 300 milligrams of milk, even though you hit your RDA for that milk, or for calcium. And I think that's just fascinating, because a lot of people just aim for the RDA and that's that. But there's more to the RDA, and it comes into absorbability and also the ability to assimilate a nutrient.
Right, and then you've got, it all depends on how your gut's working. Are you absorbing your food even, like, it could be, I guess it could even be down to something like 10% if you're not digesting the food very well and things like that.
Of course, I think so, yeah. I think it's completely variable with a lot of nutrients. Like they say, iodine's 100% absorbable, but I don't know if you have, for example, leaky gut or something. I don't know how. It may be absorbed, but if it's going to the right places, that's another thing, right?
Right. Yeah, and where did you get that 30% figure come from, John?
Yeah, I stumbled across it. It was, I'll have to find the source still, but what they did was they basically compared broccoli with calcium, the calcium that's absorbed from broccoli with the calcium that's absorbed from milk. And if I remember correctly, it was kind of suggesting like go vegan, but yeah, because it was like broccoli's a champ for calcium. You don't need milk, right? But
right.
what they
tell you have to eat like 5 pounds of broccoli a day in order to get the same calcium.
yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on. It may be more bioavailable, that calcium, but there's not enough in that broccoli to actually hit your RDA even still, right? And what I've come to the conclusion is that even though you may still be hitting your RDA in a lot of nutrients, you're probably still not getting enough. One of the classic examples would be potassium, where at least Harvard says that it's been estimated that the average Paleolithic person ate 10,000 milligrams of potassium, right? And a lot of us struggle to eat 4,500 or 4,700, right? And that's only assuming we're absorbing all that we're eating as well. So.
Right, and then taking into account, I think it was Chris Masterjohn said that, that basically the RDA is whereby you don't have like really big deficiency symptoms. So, for example, with the vitamin C, the RDA is set at that point because that would be where you would end up getting scurvy. But that doesn't necessarily mean to say that you wouldn't have all types of like minor symptoms because the RDA is set way too low. So it's only when we go into like huge major deficiency symptoms that where the RDA is generally set for most nutrients. And I would say I think that I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think the upper limit is where they say you actually start getting problems with taking certain nutrients.
Right.
And that's like, for example, you're taking like 1,000 milligrams of B6 or something, and that you might actually cause relative deficiencies with other B vitamins, or you might just cause toxicity of B6, right? And they try and what it seems like they do is they like 25% or maybe 50% of that limit that they call, they give the RDA, and it seems very theoretical at that. It's not even like based off any human study. So that's how they come to like that RDA of selenium of 55, which they keep lowering. It was like 75 like 5 years ago, because statistically, and when they do, they overlook the masses, they don't find symptoms of selenium deficiency. Therefore, they give you that RDA, but it's not necessarily what you need for optimum nutrition.
Yes, and thank you for the calcium suggestion again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got any problems with my bones anymore. So it's suggested I add that in. So very, very grateful for that. Like, seriously, like, so many of my symptoms cleared up when I started adding in calcium. And my calcium was like, what, 66 at the time? So it wasn't like my calcium was high or low. Kind of in that kind of perfect reference range. So.
Yeah. This was the MCHC you added in, right?
Yeah.
I love that supplement.
Yeah, I had noticed. I don't think I'd ever heard of it until you started talking about it, and I was like, oh, what's this? And I went over, and I was like much more open to taking that than I was for taking like calcium citrate or something along those lines.
Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend taking calcium citrate, but the MCHC, for those that don't really know what MCHC is, it's like microcrystalline hydroxyapatite, which is like a fancy way of saying bone. So it's basically just like low heat processed bone. It's pretty cool, and I think that it's probably one of the most natural ways of getting calcium in, unless you want to eat eggshells, which I don't think is a good idea.
They're a bit harsh on the stomach of the old eggshells.
Yeah, I did grind some up to give it a go, but I was thinking like, right now I'm already hitting that 3,000 milligrams of calcium each day. I don't know if I should try and even get any more. Mind you, my calcium level right now currently on air test is still low, right?
Oh really? That's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get it up since being having the high calcium shell, and once I broke through that, I haven't been able to. Basically, it seems like the more calcium that I take in, my hair doesn't want to excrete that calcium. It's like it either stays the same or it goes down, and it's almost as if my body's using that calcium to make bone and to fix things where I personally think I had a lot of problems with my bones. And I know because I did an MRI and I had degeneration of my spine, and also had spinal stenosis, which is narrowing of the spinal column.
Wow. And how old were you when you had that done?
I think 23.
Wow, that's so crazy. Nobody thinks that they're doing with like degeneration of their bloody discs and things at the age of 23.
Yeah, that's why I got really interested in calcium, because I used to listen to David Wolf before, and it was like calcium's bad, and like yeah. So I always did magnesium and all those other ones, but it wasn't until I actually got a scan and like looked at my spine and seen what it was going through that I thought maybe I should try and give it the substances to rebuild this, where I really started to gain traction.
And are you taking like vitamin K and D and all that kind of stuff as well, John? Well, you're in Australia, so you don't need vitamin D, but what about K?
I personally don't take vitamin K. I think it's probably the most dodgy supplement. Maybe next to fish oils and enzymes. I think it's just something that people are trying to sell. I don't really think it's necessary to take through a supplement. I think it's best to have your gut bacteria produce it. And my aspect that I come from is where I want to nourish my bacteria. so that my bacteria in my stomach and that make up me, because human is half human. We're half human, half bacteria, right? So we're technically superorganisms. So I want to activate my superorganismal potential. I don't want to just activate my human potential. I want the bacteria in my body to be doing the best thing that they can be doing. So they require nutrients just like the human does. Like they require magnesium and B vitamins and zinc and selenium. They love selenium. So that's my kind of aspect, is where I give them lots of fiber. I give them lots of foods that they can eat and utilize and make something with. So that's how I kind of use that vitamin K. In a way, I kind of just hope for the best, right? But I do know that a healthy gut produces vitamin K, so that's where I am with that. I have used Megaspore to colonate my GI tract at one point. I did find really good benefits while doing that. And same with other clients as well, especially for those that have calcium shells. I found it really helpful. Whether or not it's due to the vitamin K, I don't know, because it's only like, well, as far as even what Microbiome Lab says, the actual amount of vitamin K produced by the bacteria isn't at the levels that they suggest is really beneficial for, like, lowering calcification. So short answer, no, I don't use vitamin K or vitamin D, but I don't really need vitamin D because of the sun here.
Right.
It's crazy. It's like there's a hole in the sky. Probably get more vitamin D in like 5 minutes than I got all year in Canada.
Yeah, no, totally. There's like when I was living in Hawaii and now back in England, it's like I have to work really hard to get my sun thing in, whereas in Hawaii it was just like part of my day.
I was in Canada, I used to I don't know if you do that there, but you measure if you're taller than your shadow, then you can get vitamin D. Do you do that there?
No, I haven't, but I will do.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know how legit that is, but usually it means like midday or before midday. At least in Canada, it was the only time you could really get your vitamin D. I don't know how true that is.
I think it's like April through October is vitamin D time, and then after that you pretty much get like February that we had like 70 degrees here for like a whole week, and I was definitely outside in the sun, and I actually got some suntan. Amazing.
What I do think is really cool with the magnesium being needed to utilize vitamin D. I think that's really important for people that are taking 5,000 IUs and still can't move up that vitamin D status.
Right. Yeah. Well, when I was living in Hawaii, I think at one point I went to go and get some blood work done. And I got vitamin D test, and I was borderline deficient in vitamin D. I was out in the sun all the time, and I was brown as a berry.
Really?
My vitamin D was 30. And,
Wow.
That's 30 US.
Yeah.
So it's probably like 50 or something like that in the UK, which still is like borderline, like just barely limping along in my vitamin D status. And then I've been living there for like 10 years, spending at least 3 hours at the beach, pretty much 4 days a week, kind of type thing, midday sunshine. And because my magnesium was so low, I just wasn't absorbing my vitamin D very well.
Do you drink a lot of coffee, Pippa? At the time, I don't know if you do even now, but
No, I haven't been a coffee drinker for about 10 years now.
okay. Because another thing that a lot of people overlook when it comes to, well, firstly, overall mineral status, but especially with vitamin D, is that they consume a lot of diuretics, like caffeine. That's, with caffeine comes tea, comes coffee, right? Even chocolate, which is supposedly good in magnesium, but too much could lower your vitamin D status.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realise that. Well, I definitely like chocolate, although I don't eat a huge amount of chocolate. I probably eat like between 4 and 6 squares of chocolate, of green and black dark chocolate a day. So I wouldn't say like I wouldn't eat like a whole bar or like half a bar, even a quarter of a bar a day or That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, the only reason why I learned that was because, well, diuretics can lower, magnesium, potassium, and even some calcium. And if magnesium is necessary for vitamin D production, then I just kind of put it two and two together. But the other aspect I was thinking about was a lot of people that have electrolyte imbalances in general. And I know in like Wilson's Nutritional Balancing Program, for example, he used to recommend people always just have a coffee enema. Actually, we had a question. I just kind of set the stage up. Let me just ask the question before I forget. Someone was wondering about the mineral depletion with diuretics. That's what made me bring that up. And what minerals could be lost every time you do a coffee enema. I guess we can segue into that question. Where coffee in high amounts depletes, whether it's orally, you can deplete calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium just because it's a diuretic, and chromium and selenium as well. Really, you can, every time you urinate, you're peeing out minerals, right? Like boron especially. But when you do coffee enema as well, which is where I was getting at with Dr. Wilson, and you have a lot of people with electrolyte imbalances that try doing coffee enemas, and they may get short-term benefits, but then they start hitting kind of like plateaus with coffee enemas themselves, or even they do coffee enemas and they start getting blood sugar imbalances and things like that. Like they get all shaky and lightheaded, or they get sometimes just dehydration in general. And I think, just to answer that question on minerals depleted through coffee, would be that many people realize, for example, that you may take coffee enema to enhance glutathione production, not realizing that glutathione is selenium dependent, and if you don't have adequate amounts of selenium to create glutathione, which isn't very much, it's like 55 micrograms, but we see on hair testing a lot of people don't really have good selenium levels, meaning that they may be using glutathione that's has like mercury in it, for example, instead of selenium, or they're using glutathione that's got sulfur in it instead of selenium, and they're not actually getting the bang for their buck with the coffee enema to enhance glutathione production, especially with those low potassium levels, where after they do the coffee enema, they may urinate out excess amount of potassium, making it harder for them to raise their tissue level. Hopefully I covered that question. Do you have anything to add, Pippa? Or
No, not really. I think both that and or just to mention the sauna element. When you go into a sauna and you are sweating out minerals and electrolytes like that. So it's not just heavy metals. And so if you're in a four lows pattern, I don't personally think that using coffee enemas and saunas when you're in four lows is a particularly good idea, unless you'd unless you're solid in a four lows pattern where you've been in it for a while and you feel like are way better and you can gauge it. But if you feel like you're very sensitive and weak, I don't suggest doing those particular protocols at that moment.
Yeah, I agree. I do recommend still to do just the infrared lamp therapy.
Right.
Like just a single lamp. Do you do that, Pippa?
Yeah, I do. And I actually, I need to go. I really wish that I could have a sauna at home, but I don't. So I've had to start going to a local gym to go and use the sauna. I do like doing saunas, but I do like that little single lamp therapy. It's very relaxing on the nervous system. I could shine that on my kidneys, or like if I'd just lay down underneath it, kind of I know you're not meant to do this, but I used to help me to fall asleep sometimes.
Yeah.
Like an app.
Nah, I do that. We put it on right before bed, just soak up that red. We do the front, and then we roast each other, you like you're like one of those pigs under the fire. You slowly rotate, and you draw blood all the way around your body. Yeah, I find it very relaxing. It helps with that parasympathetic kind of response.
Well, I would really like to buy one of those one of the big lamps where there's like a lot of infrared lamps. You know, the big professional ones that they sell nowadays. It's for about 350.
The one, it's like one of those old stand-up lamps that have like 6, 7 lamps on it, lamp heads.
Yeah, but it's kind of like no, no. I know now. I've got your. No, it's like they use them for like uh, indoor growing and things like that. But let me just see what's the name of the product. But it's like it's like a proper infrared setup. So basically, you've got like maybe 20 or 30 lamps.
Oh wow, are they like LED lamps or?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm
Okay.
gonna have a look. Um, I'll send you a link for one of them.
Okay. I do have a good friend that has he owns the company Clear Light Saunas.
Okay.
Have you heard of them?
No.
They're quite big in Australia and America and UK and Germany. Pretty good company overall. But they got a little sauna dome. That one's pretty cool. It's like a small one. Also, there's that other company, the Relax Sauna, and they have a little fold-up one, which is even better for the people that don't have a lot of space.
Cause yeah, 'cause like I just see my mother's face. Like if I'm just living with my mother at the moment, I just see her. Imagine her face when she like saw me coming in with a sauna. Like she'd just like keel over and like have a heart attack there on the spot. I think so. We have quite a small house, so it's not like a lot of space to put anything.
Yeah.
I could just hear her voice in my mind go, "Where are you gonna put that then?"
You gotta hang it from the ceiling or something.
Oh my god, yeah.
But yeah, it was a good point when you said you do the sauna therapy and you do lose a lot of minerals through sweat. One of them, which I didn't really think of too much until I did an article on iodine, was that when you do excessive exercising, whether it be, the study that I read was about, I think it was soccer players in high school. They're going around playing soccer essentially for an hour and a half, and then they tested their sweat to see what was in it. And what they found was that there's more iodine in the sweat of the athlete than is actually required for the RDA for iodine, suggesting that like chronic sweating, especially if you're sweating a lot for like an hour like they did in the study, that you could actually cause an iodine deficiency. And I'd like to extrapolate and say that you could probably do that with all of the minerals. If you sweat too much, you could probably just sweat out all of your nutrients.
Yeah, that does make sense. Especially for me, when I was living in Hawaii as well, because I definitely tended more towards the more low fat back then. And I noticed at points where I'd feel like really weak because of this heat there. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, here we've been doing, because it gets hot here. I've never experienced the heat like this. Maybe we get a couple of days in Canada, but not constant. Anyway, one of the things I've been doing lately is you take coconut water, and then we've been using cherry concentrate. And the cherry concentrate itself, it's like 1 teaspoon. It's got like 650 milligrams of potassium. And then like a cup of coconut water, which again has about like 600 milligrams of potassium or something like that. And we mix them together, and it makes like this really strong drink. So then we water it down. And it's probably been the only thing that, really hydrate me in this heat like this, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, how hot is it there right now?
It's been cool lately. Right now, let me check the thing. I'm climatizing as well, which I didn't think would happen so quick. I'm not sure. I guess I'll Google it. I have no idea. We're just going through, I think we're in autumn now. I think we just switched. We're at 18 degrees Celsius right now. It's not very hot, but it was like 27 in the day.
Yeah, because you're up further north, so you're going to be like closer to the equator. So yeah, it's going to be hot up there. It's hot. Australia's hot.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. But a lot of the Australians here, and what I've been trying to kind of educate all of them on, is that there's a very, very low selenium levels in the soil. And not all of them really care, but the people that are listening, I'm like, take it as free advice. Like, you know, you guys are like very low in selenium. You need it, right? And I've noticed since I've been here, like my selenium level's always been fine. After the 9 months of supplementation, up until I got it to like, I went ideal, and then I'll be honest, my hair even went over ideal, and it was pretty much like very high selenium. And then I thought, hey, maybe I should stop supplementing it. Anyway, then I come here and it's basically like sucked all gone. It's like pulled way down again. So that's why I've been taking it at such high doses lately.
Say that I thought that Australia was low in selenium. That was like one of like, but it makes sense because I think Australians tend to have a lot of thyroid issues.
Yeah. They're catching up to, you know, standard America though, with pretty much everything. Like I was surprised that when I first came here, like some of the foods, like it's cheaper to get like craft dinner or like, you know, Coca-Cola products or something here than it is something that was made here. You know, and it's kind of attractive to them because it's cheaper, but they're about like 10 years, you know, behind where America was, maybe 20. So it'd be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as here, you know, like England now pretty much the same as America. I mean, I don't think we have quite the amount of obesity, but there's a lot of it here. And as a kid, we rarely saw fat people.
The English diet's pretty, well, at least from what I know from my own family, it's not very good. It's basically what, chips, maybe some egg. You might get liver if you're lucky. Onion, obviously. You get a fried onion or something. Biscuits and tea. That's pretty much my grandma. Minced meat and potato, I guess.
Yeah, so we do a lot. It was interesting because, you know, if you think about it, like going back to the 70s, we really didn't have like the levels of obesity here that we do now. Right? And that's more like the Coca-Cola kind of generation, I think. But yeah, traditional English food has been like sausages and mash. But you know, you have to remember that the sausages back in the old days wouldn't have had all the crap in it. It's been like meat and maybe some kind of grain of some description, or like some herbs. And then potatoes would have been made, and the mash would have been made out of potatoes and butter and milk. So we've generally always tended towards like a stodgy diet with a fair amount of fried foods in our diet, but I don't think that we had we didn't have like the Coca-Cola and all the junk food that we have now. So yeah, we do eat liver a lot. I think I'm like literally the only person that whenever I suggest to my clients, if I get an English client and I suggest liver, they always seem way more open to it than if than I suggest it to an American client. I'll say, you know, you could try eating some liver, and they go, ugh, liver, disgusting.
I remember you one time and told me that you eat kidney and heart and all that. I could do liver, but kidney and heart for me was a little big.
Oh no, I love all that stuff. Well, I was brought up on it, you see, so we had all of that. My dad was a butcher.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, so he would always bring home, you know, each night he would bring home like meat from the market. And then, so we would quite often have like heart or kidneys and things like that. So I grew up, so steak and kidney pie was like really quite normal.
Hmm.
I think my mum like slow cooked the heart in a casserole in a pot. Um, so yeah, we'd have like stuffed hearts and like stuff.
Do you ever eat chicken neck?
No, because you can't buy them here.
No?
You're not allowed to legally to buy them here, the same as in America, because they've got the thyroid gland and you're not legally allowed to buy them.
Yeah, I've been looking for some. Need to find one of those underground butchers.
Right, yeah, so if you're really good friends with a butcher and you know them well, like, they're open to giving them to you, then yes, you can probably find them. But when I lived in America, like, the only place, we didn't have any, like, local butchers per se. It was, like, the health food store down the road that did, like, organic meats and things like that, and I would always say to the guy, he would do me, like, chicken backs and things like that for the, what's it called, doing bone broth and things like that, but he was never allowed to sell me necks. He wouldn't. And in fact, a lot of the chickens that he was actually getting towards the end had already had their heads already off.
Yeah, that's how it is here for the most part. It's even hard just to find the feet, because we like to make a broth with it, because we don't really make bone broth. We make like collagen broth, where we boil the connective tissue of an animal rather than try and get the marrow out.
Yeah.
But even chicken feet themselves are getting hard to come by.
Yeah, it's exactly the same here. The more the kind of like high street takes over, and it's like less of your like actual local butcher. Well, I do have a local butcher that like about 15 minutes away from me, and I went in there one day and I asked him like, I'd like to eat next, but that's we don't sell those. So I don't know if it's because it's not worth their while, because they don't make that much money on them. It's pretty cheap, but I did actually in the US I would find chicken feet and whole foods.
Yeah. The last butcher I asked if he, get this. I asked the butcher if he had chicken feet, and he said, the chicken feet machine is broken. And I was thinking, what? Like, you gotta put the chicken in a machine to cut its feet off? I thought you're a butcher. Maybe it's just my naivety, but...
No, but I'm sure that's how it's done these days. The thing is like, I don't know, like, I grew up, well, my dad was a butcher, so like my dad chopped the meat up. That's what his job was chop up the meat.
Pippa, sorry, I'll mention, I sometimes order from the Kum farm organic, not sure if you heard, and they do have the neck, where you can order. It's like an organic neck. Okay. Yeah. I can send you a link later if you want.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and they have, like, basically it comes with the liver. These are like things that they have like leftovers from, when they chop the meat. Yeah. And then you can buy what they call like offal. Yeah. So I do have it sometimes, and it's quite nice, in a soup. Right. I hope there is no thyroid there inside.
Right. Yes, that's what I would I would want to buy it for, the thyroid gland. But like, yeah, because that's the insanity. These are the parts of the animal that would have been like the first part of the animal that would have been passed.
Yeah. I'll send you a link. You can actually get. It's quite cheap as well. It's like £1.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll send you a link.
Thank you, sweetie.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that they throw all that stuff away, or they don't really use it. I think liver and heart and things like that, they probably put them in animals a lot of the time.
Yeah. I think at one point the poor people used to eat the muscle meat, right? And do I have that right? No, the rich people used to eat the muscle meat, like the kings and all that. And the peasants, or the normal people, if you will, used to eat the organs. Yeah, so the idea would be that, like, even the poor people were eating a better diet at one point than, the rich king who used to get gout and, all these modern diseases even. Whereas the peasant would live a long life because he was, eating liver and thyroid and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, it makes sense as well, because any animals in nature, certainly predators at least, they always, they always rip open the stomach usually and eat all the organs, arms and legs of the animal.
Yeah, you break open the chest and get the goods.
Alright, and I know that, like, Magda just sent us a link, so I'm going to put a link on that as well for that red light.
Okay.
Kind of see it. That's the big one that they've in there though. And you can get smaller sizes, like I think the smaller halves, like but it's cheaper in the US.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just like pure red and is that ultraviolet at the same time? Yeah, I can't remember exactly. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. The only thing I ever think about because it looks like they're LEDs, is that the flicker rate is usually crazy. Do you know what the flicker rate is, Pippa?
I have no clue, but I would imagine that they probably say on EMF readings and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I see that. The flicker is basically, you can do it even with your cell phone usually, and you can record a video. Maybe I'll get Erin to comment in the group on how to do that. She used to do it a lot. And you can see that, like, if you do an incandescent light, for example, and you record a video on your phone, it's a quite clean light, like it's not flickering over and over again. And when you have like the LEDs, they like go on off like very quickly. And I find that really stimulating personally. I don't know all of the negative attributes of that, but I know that's one thing a lot of people look out for. That's the major thing why I don't normally jump for the LEDs. But I have seen, is it the Juve or something like that, which is similar to what you just showed me.
Right, yeah, the Juve's like probably the American version of that. So yeah, but I think you're only using that. It's not like you're in front of that for like ages. I think you're in front of that for like 20 minutes, half an hour.
Okay.
Today, and the idea is it like it helps to like stimulate mitochondria. So lots of people seem to suggest that you can, like, it helps to like build energy.
Yeah. You said you're gardening, Pippa. Are you doing anything to try and make sure you're getting adequate nutrients in your are you growing food, or are you just growing flowers?
No, I think it's flowers at the moment. I've been gardening, doing like cutting, like pruning things back. We had a big storm here a couple of weeks ago, and like our garden fence got basically ripped to shreds.
Oh no.
It was attached to a rather large and very thick vine, so I've been out there kind of trying to prune that back off the wood so that I could get the wood out from underneath it. And then we had a new garden fence fitted yesterday, and now my mother's out there planting flowers and things like that today. So I'm not a very green-fingered person. I tend to like kill things, although one of my friends said plant courgettes because courgettes are leaking to you. Because you'll basically be able to like grow those really easily, and you don't really need to do very much with them. But I'm not planning on putting any vegetables out there yet.
Okay. Yeah, right now we're just doing we got some herbs like parsley, and we got like curry, which I didn't know that was a plant. I thought it was a blend of herbs, but I guess there's a plant that tastes and smells exactly like curry. We got that going. lavender. We got a bunch of just herbs in general. And we do like some renegade gardening where we just kind of let grow what grows. You know, and we like weed it if we really don't want it, but otherwise we just let it grow. So right now, I think I sent you a picture at one point where we got like a lot of green amaranth, and that's like an awesome food. It's like spinach, and it tastes like spinach, but it probably blows spinach out of the water with as far as nutrient content goes.
Right.
And so we basically just go in the garden, you know, we take out a handful and then come inside and we make like a blue corn pizza, or, you know, throw it in the stir fry or potato bake or something. And, you know, we just kind of eat that. That's really cool food. It saves us a lot of money, actually. The other thing we got growing right now is watermelon. Because, I love me some watermelon.
I love watermelon. A good watermelon's great.
Yeah, obviously.
Now I'm back in the UK, I don't really get very good watermelon anymore, whereas when I was in Hawaii, I used to get really good watermelon. In England, it's all just like, you know, it doesn't really have any sweetness to it. It tastes like water. It's kind of, I guess, that's part of the point.
Do you think that England would be very high in calcium because of like, it's like dolomite or something there?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Well, our water is very, very hard. I'm not sure, Pippa, if you have the same issue.
Yeah.
But like, we have scale everywhere.
Yeah, lime.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot the water is really hard here. I have to say, like, my hair is so dull in comparison to what it was like when I was in Hawaii. It's unbelievable. I had to, like, totally change out all of my hair products because, like, my hair just didn't respond the same way in this environment. Also, there's the humidity over there was different, but I'm pretty sure that half of it has to do with how heavy the water is there.
That's why I don't need any more calcium.
You drink tap water?
No, well, only for tea. But I have like a carbon filter and a UV filter for hot tea. But
Okay.
otherwise, I drink Evian water. Evian water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I shower, you know, John. So I think some of it do get absorbed, you know, through skin.
Yeah.
Although it's questionable, as you said, absorption through skin.
Yeah, I don't want to discount it. It's just, that was one thing I read on magnesium, really, but I don't want to discount any skin absorption, because I kind of think that if you take, like, I use a shower filter, for example, and I think if you don't have a shower filter, you're getting like chlorine and fluorine all over your skin, and your skin is like your largest organ, first off, but it also has a lot of bacteria on there, and like chlorine is like it'll kill bacteria, right? So like I feel like it could cause a lot of skin issues and things like that. So, you know, if not absorbed, it could probably interact with other stuff on your skin anyway. So yeah, I think it's always good to have a filter on your water, a filter for your air, because, well, I kind of believe that if you don't have a filter, you're going to filter the air, because that's what our lungs do. And if you don't have a filter in your water, then you'll just open yourself up to contamination. But it is interesting, if you have hard water, Magda, that you might want to try next hair test to use distilled water, or
yeah, or just even the mineral water, right? Like Evian, to wash my hair before I cut my sample.
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. Yeah. I mean, you might want to heat it up on the pot or something.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, use some warm water, because pouring cold water in your hair.
Right, yeah, I think you could just do that final rinse with distilled water. But I think it's really expensive to buy distilled water.
Yeah.
It was like 6 or 10 like pounds for like a 5-gallon jug of like distilled water. I was like, what the hell?
Wow.
It's like insane.
Yeah, I had it tested, and it's like one of the hardest in the whole country. in our region, Pippa. You're not far away from me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard water.
Yeah, see, just because like I was said sometime in this call about one of my other clients with the very hard water, and then they used a softener and they skewed all their results. But my initial advice to her was to do what I just mentioned, where you just use distilled water, where in Canada it's very cheap. It's the same price as spring water, and it's pretty cheap. I think it's like $2.99 or something like that for 3 liters.
It's not cheap in the UK.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
I don't know any source in the UK of cheap distilled water.
Right. I wonder if they sell it at petrol stations.
Hmm.
Because that's where they used to sell it. Because you used to put distilled water
Yeah.
into your radiator.
Mm-hmm. But if I wash in mineral water, is it good enough, or would you rather use distilled water?
I would say, well, I don't know about mineral.
I don't know about mineral water. Maybe Evian is that just spring water? That's not a mineral water, is it?
Yeah, spring water, yes. Mm-hmm.
I think that would be okay, or even like bottled spring water. I don't think that'll throw anything off. If we were testing for antimony, which we don't, and you can do it, it's actually, it costs like $35 or something like that more to test for antimony. You could give that a false reading, but we don't test for it, so I think bottled water.
I just realized, John, that I did have a test. I had a period of time when my calcium was around 50, and I was still living here, so maybe it is my calcium shell. I think it must be my calcium
It could
shell.
be. Pippa and I had talked about this one time as well in the past, but we weren't sure if the calcium in the water was that big of a skewing, for the actual test results or not. I think it's still open to really know the exact effect of that. Because when I had my very big calcium shell, that was when I was in Canada, and the water was very high in calcium, which I still supplemented with calcium, but I feel like it could have played a role with my my hair calcium at the time.
Right, but I'm not totally sure about that now, John, because my hair calcium's come down quite considerably.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I was just saying that. I don't know if it's, if it actually really does skew the results, because I don't know, to be honest. I found that like you can have low calcium still and have hard water. I don't think that.
I wonder if it has more to do with our sun exposure.
Yeah.
Not just mine, because I'm just wondering, because when I came back here, my calcium was super high until we had the summer, and then my calcium started to come down in the summer due to my vitamin D exposure. Whereas in Hawaii, I always had low calcium. I never had high calcium in Hawaii. It was always somewhere between 30 and 40.
Have you do you supplement with vitamin D? You probably don't, Pippa, but
I've been using a Spurty vitamin D lamp for the last 3 or 4 months. So my vitamin D started to drop quite quickly.
are you finding that it gives you adequate amount of vitamin D?
I felt like by the time it got to January, I was really starting to feel like I was noticing either the effects of having such short days, or the fact that it felt like my calcium my vitamin D might be dropping. So I did get my vitamin D tested, and I was borderline again. And then I actually started to have sunbeds a week, and that seemed to help balance everything out. So that's probably what I'll do. Actually, I'm not even going to be in.
Oh.
I'm going to Spain or somewhere like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. I never really supplemented with vitamin D. I did when I was in Canada. One of the things was I never really drank the milk there, because you can't buy milk in Canada without it being fortified with vitamin D, and they also add Yeah, vitamin A. So I just never drank it. Here, oh, I was so happy when you could find milk and it didn't have anything in it.
Yeah. No, I know it does. It does make a big difference. It tastes much better as well. So, I mean, I understand. I do understand why they fortify foods, but I don't necessarily understand why they fortify milk. But you know, I guess that's just more, just I don't know. Maybe just the way that they farm the animals now. They're not making so much D and vitamin A in milk. So
I think the other aspect is where because the average person doesn't eat a very good diet, they fortify the foods that the average person eats. Right, and those, like in Canada, orange juice was fortified with, extra vitamin C and things like that. So you couldn't even just get orange juice. So I guess it's the idea that the government tries to protect you, right? And they mean well. When you get into nutrition, you follow diets, or you get into a healthy living kind of lifestyle, and you stop eating a lot of the so-called sad foods, standard American foods, or the standard Australian foods, or the sud foods, I guess, standard UK foods. Sucked. You kind of lose track on it. You don't realize what the government actually has done for you sometimes, especially with diet. And like I noticed, for example, a lot of people don't supplement iodine, they don't take any seafood, and they don't eat table salt anymore because table salt's bad, right? And they eat just sea salt, but they don't actually have a source of iodine in their diet anymore because they made it one good decision, but then at the same time they made a poor decision by not supplementing iodine, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think iodine's always one of those ones that's a little bit controversy about it right now as well. Like how much is okay for you. So people are like, I have to use pink Himalayan salt.
Yeah. Well, I just think, I did a big article on iodine, and I talked about, a lot of, pretty much, as far as I think, at least, a lot of the controversy with it. And I think the recommendation they give it, like selenium, is just too low. And when you eat iodized salt, I don't think you necessarily get too much iodine. But when you don't, like say you stop eating table salt and then you switch to Himalayan salt, now you got no iodine source, and I don't think that's better. Personally, I think you're probably better off having iodized sea salt, for example, than it is just pure sea salt. Do you guys have any questions or something? I think we're getting around the group call time.
Was there any questions anybody said other than the one you asked?
We only had the coffee enema one. Not many people are really too keen on joining the UK calls.
Yeah.
It's usually just Pippa and I, and now Magda. So
They're hardcore. Do you get a lot of people that listen to them or not?
yeah, I'll be honest, my website gets hit up quite a bit, especially the MB Friends call one. I don't know if they listen because I don't really check out, the viewership or anything like that, and how many times each call's been viewed. But that's probably one of the most popular pages on the website, so at least people go there. That's all I know. I think the next call I'm going to try and bring in a lady, I think for the US call, I might bring in a lady from Australia that I met, and she does a lot of emotional work, so I think we're going to talk about that next call.
I'll have to listen to the recording. It's probably around about 3 a.m.
Yeah, it'll be a silly time. But I just think we really need to talk a little bit about that, and I'm no expert in it, but I think to hear some other insights that people have would be helpful.
Okay, all right. Well, it was lovely talking to you, John and Magda.
Yes, thank you guys for your time.
And thanks for the link. And I guess I'll speak to you guys.
Mhm.
All right, bye everyone. Thanks for coming,
Bye.
Magda.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming, Pippa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.